then the ulama state that practice begins from the month of Rajab. And there is a riwayat of a person, the Imam asks from him, that have you fasted just once in this holy month? He says, no, ya Imam. The Imam says to him, on these final nights, try to fast at least once. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall open up His doors of rahmat for you. And this is in reality a person, he builds his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he starts to see true change within himself, within his life, and also in his surroundings, how he views this world. However, today was the day of the 25th of the month of Rajab. The day of the 25th is known as the day of the Shahadat of our 7th Imam, Aba Ibrahim, Babul Hawaij, Ali Imam Kazim A.S. Salli ala Muhammad Ali Muhammad Ajil Farajam. So therefore, days of tragedy, we begin by expressing our condolences in the court of Imam Zama Ajal Allah Faraj Sharif, all of our ulama, Maraja Azam, our fellow mu'mineen and mu'minat around the world, especially all of you who are present here today with your families, and especially those mu'mineen who are in difficult situations around the world. Inshallah, by the barakat of Imam Kazim A.S, may they see ease, and inshallah by his sanctity, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open up the doors to the zuhur of the 12th Imam Ajjalallahu ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, with one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahu. अच्छा कम आ रही है اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. Now, the personality of the 7th Imam alayhi salatu wassalam, if we look into his era and his personality, we can look at it from many different angles. For example, a few of those were mentioned by our brother in the poetry. Those are also parts of the life of the Imam, and many different encounters and narrations we have of the 7th Imam. Firstly, it's good to talk a bit about the birth of a personality, one of our Imam Ma'asumin alayhim as-salam, before we begin. So just inshallah for the familiarization of our youth and all of us in reality, because we tend to forget. So the birth of the Imam alayhi salam took place in a land known as Aqwa. Aqwa is about 40 kilometers on the outskirts of the city of Medina, and this is in fact the same place where the mother of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hazrat Amina salamullah alayha, is buried also in this land. And it says that our 6th Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, the Imam was in a state of Hajj in the land of Mecca when he receives the news of the birth of his beloved son, our 7th Imam alayhi salam. And the Imam thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was very happy. The mother of our 7th Imam alayhi salam is by the name of Hazrat Hamida salamullah alayha, and she is apparently, according to narrations, according to the more popular narrations, from the African lands, and she is known to be a very pious and religious, a noble personality. In fact, our 6th Imam alayhi salatu wasalam states about her, about his wife, that she is Hamidatun fid dunya wa mahmudatun fil akhirah. Okay, that she is praised and she is beloved in this world as well as the next. And then he goes on to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has purified her in the same manner that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has purified Hazrat Maryam salamullah alayha in the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has divinely purified the mother of Imam Al-Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam also. And she has such a great status that she was not only the wife of our sixth Imam alayhi salam, but she also became the agent, the companion, one of the spokespersons of the Imam alayhi salam. The Imams, as you all know, we've mentioned this before, they had different representatives, different agents who would work on their behalf. One of those was his noble wife, the mother of Imam Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam. And she is the narrator and writer of many of our narrations and our hadith. And today, if anyone would like to visit her and her daughter-in-law, meaning the wife of Imam al-Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam, Hazrat Narjis Khatun salamullah alayha, they are both buried in a graveyard in Medina. Hazrat Narjis Khatun salamullah alayha is the mother of Hazrat Ma'asuma salamullah alayha, and also Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. If a person, I'm not sure how many of you have been to the holy city of Qum, there is a sort of basement area, a sahan which they have, very beautiful area where most of the students, they take their children and their family members, and there was a lot of very interesting programs and activities such as Quran Hifz, where the children can become Hafiz of Quran, and that sahan is known as Sahan Hazrat Narjis Khatun Salam alayha. So it's been named after the wife of Imam al-Kazim alayhi salatu wasalam. Please recite one loud salawat. And it's said that the Imam has spent 20 years with his father, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, and he would attend his dars, he would attend different sessions in the madrasa of our sixth, in fact not a madrasa, rather the first university, the established university in the city of Medina, the Ja'fari University. The seventh Imam alayhi salam was also familiarized with ilm and divine knowledge, although the Imam Ma'asum is divinely taught from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and through the Imam Ma'asumin alayhi salam. And so his imamat goes on for 35 years in his life. He becomes an imam at the age of 20, and for 35 years he is an imam for the mu'mineen until his shahadat in Baghdad. And a very painful tragedy for the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And one of, just regarding the fazail of the Imam alayhi salam, although we have many fazail, but sometimes it's good to look at it from a different lens. One of the academic scholars of the Ahl Sunnah, he praises our seventh Imam alayhi salam very beautifully. A scholar by the name of Muhammad Ali Shafi'i from about 800 years ago, he writes about different great personalities from the lineage of the Prophet, peace be upon him, different imams, different scholars. And when describing our seventh Imam alayhi salam, this Sunni scholar, he states, Yabithul layl sajidun wa qa'ima, yani रात को सजदे की हालत में गुजारते थे और जब सुबह में पहुंचते थे तो इबादत की हालत में. He says this about our Imam alayhi salam, meaning he was in a state of sujood throughout his nights, and as he entered into the morning he was also in a state of ibadat. Then he goes on to say, وَيَقْدَعُ النَّهَارِ مُسْتَسَدِّبًا وَسَائِمًا. He would spend his day whilst fasting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also feeding the poor, feeding those who are empty-handed, they do not have food in their homes. كَانَ يُجَازِي الْمُسِيءَ بِإِحْسَانِهِ إِلَيْهِ. That he says that the Imam, those who would try to harm this personality, the seventh Imam, those who would try to hate him and ridicule him, sometimes they would try to insult him, the Imam would respond with kindness. The Imam would respond with a very soft akhlaq. One of the followers of the second Khalif, who was at the time of Imam al-Kazim alayhi salatu wasalam, he is a Nasibi. He's a follower of the second Khalif, and whenever he encounters Imam al-Kazim alayhi salatu wasalam, he insults him. He starts to try to ridicule his status. And whenever the companions, they became very emotional, they said, Ya Imam, we cannot handle this, we need to put this person in his place. Just imagine someone disrespects one of your Imams today before your eyes, and every single person will respond with emotion. The Imam says to them, none of you are allowed to respond to this person. None of you should deal with him. And one day it says that the Imam, he goes to the farm of this same Nasibi person, and as soon as this man, he sees the seventh Imam alayhi salam, he begins to insult him again. He begins to really use bad language for the Imam. And then the Imam goes forward, he gets off his horse, and he asks from him that how much do you make in a single day from all of this livelihood of yours, from your farming? And the man says, well, Ibn Rasulullah, I make 200 dinar. What is it to you? Annually, I make 200 dinar. The Imam, straight away, he takes out a packet. And it's very ma'ruf that the Imam would carry packets of money to give hidiyah to those who are needy sometimes. But strangely, the Imam is handing this packet to this person of 300 dinar. The companions are very surprised. Why did the Imam do this? But then they see that this same Nasibi, he falls in love with Imam Kazim A.S. to such a level that daily he is in the presence of the Imam. He attends the dars of the Imam and he becomes one of the greatest lovers of the Imam. So sometimes, the Imams are teaching us to not always respond with anger and emotion, but rather sometimes the best of akhlaq can change the heart of a person. And this is at the end of the day what the Quran and the Prophet, peace be upon him, have taught us too, that if they do bad to you, then you do good with them, and you will inshallah see change in that person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in Surah Al-Ra'd, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَيَدْرَؤُونَ بِالْحَسَنَةِ السَّيَّةِ, and respond to evil with good. That if someone has a very bad akhlaq, we have a hadith, I believe as well, which says that if you lower your head before insults, it will be like arrows which miss you. However, if you respond with an akhlaq in such a way, it will melt that person's heart, it will transform him, and it will attract that heart towards you. And inshallah, you will see a change in the akhlaq of that person as well. You will become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this scholar who we were speaking about, he continues to praise the Imam, and he goes on to say that if someone had ever wronged Imam Al-Kazim A.S., the Imam would straight away, he would forgive that person. لِكَثْرَةِ عِبَادَتِهِ كَانَ يُسَمَّى عَبْدِ الصَّالِحِ. The seventh Imam A.S., he would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much that they would refer to him in the land of Medina as Abdus Salih. As Abdus Salih. This is the level of the ibadat of the Imam. Then he goes on to say, وَيُعْرِفَهُ فِي الْعِرَاقِ بِبَابِ الْحَوَائِجِ. That amongst the people of Iraq, remember this is a non-Shia, a Sunni scholar is saying this, praising the Imam. He says, وَيُعْرِفَهُ فِي الْعِرَاقِ بِبَابِ الْحَوَائِجِ. That in the land of Iraq, they refer to this son of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as they refer to him as Bab al-Hawaij, the door to Hajat. And these are just a few forms, a few examples of the display of Bab al-Hawaij, which we've just mentioned. Inshallah, I'll mention a few other of those as well. Today, you see people from different backgrounds, if they do tawassul, they go to the shrine of the seventh Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfills their hajat through this wasila. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself states in the Quran, وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةِ. Come to me with a means. For a person to say that, if you are seeking through one of the Imams, you are therefore not seeking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says, come to me with a means. The Quran itself is a means of nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Imam Ma'asumin alayhi salam are also amongst the best means for a person to gain hajat. One of those is our seventh Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. In reality, all of our Imams are Bab al-Hawaij. However, why has it been said about this Imam? Inshallah, we'll come to this. But if we look into the life of this Imam, he fulfills the needs of the people. This is the trait of our Imam Ma'asumin alayhi salam, that they would try to fulfill the needs of people. If we look at the life of our first Imam alayhi salam, you all know very well, in the Masa'ib we listen that the Imam would take naan and dates for the orphans, for the Aitam in the city of Kufa. How often is it that we think about those who are without food? Sayyidah Salam alayha, 17 ayat have been revealed in her praise because she gives to Aitam, she gives to Fuqara. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises her in the Quran. So she does not rely upon anyone else to do this, but rather the Imam Ma'asumin alayhi salam, we see, they step forward in giving and fulfilling the needs of society. And I'm just going to mention, inshallah, a few points about the main circumstances around the government of Banu Abbas. And then, inshallah, we'll mention a few of the ways that the Imam had reacted and what was his reaction, what was his stance against these policies of Banu Abbas in these very testing times, which were very similar to the tests of Akhir al-Zaman. The circumstances of Banu Abbas firstly, and then how the Imam reacted to those. Especially in the time of Imam al-Kazim A.S. What were those policies and bad traits of Banu Abbas? If we look in terms of, for example, the rulership of Banu Abbas, when it comes to Mansur Diwanaqi, Mahdi Abbasi, Hadi Abbasi, and then Harun Rashid, we find 5 traits in this Ba'athi government. The first is, listen very carefully, the first is corruption in their akhlaq. Corruption when it comes to their morals as human beings. Every single human being is supposed to have morals and develop these morals as a righteous Muslim. But when the leaders of a society become corrupt in morals, then you can recite the Inna Lillah of the society. But how did the Imam react to this? A historian, interestingly, he writes in his book that when it came to the gatherings of Harun, he would have 300 maid women and different dancers in his simple and normal gatherings. And his gatherings would be filled with alcohol to such a level that people would be speaking about that. Whenever alcohol, the topic of alcohol would come up, they would say, oh yes, Harun Rashid is, the greatest promoter, the greatest of parties take place with Harun. Sometimes he would pay 50,000 dinar, it says, to his female and male singers. 50,000 dinar at that time, just to keep alive this haram atmosphere in his majlis. And this was supposed to be a government which brings an end to the tyranny of Banu Abbas. This is what they claimed, that we will come into power, we will bring an end to the fasad of Banu Umayyah. But in many terms, you see that Banu Abbas, their fasad is far greater. The second trait of Banu Abbas is their financial corruption. When we say financial corruption, what do we mean? Their level of israf, their level of extravagance was to a great level. And sometimes a person doesn't pay much attention to this issue of israf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Quran that Inna Allah la yuhibbul musrifun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love those who practice israf. But sometimes it can come to the smallest of issues, which we see as the smallest of issues, but it can remove the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the equation of our lives. So this was one of the traits of Banu Abbas. We just remember, dear brothers, my sisters, well, all of our dear mu'mineen, that when we say Al-Ajal, Ya Imam al-Zaman, these are those traits which we need to truly overcome in our lives. If we still have these traits in our lives, but then we say Al-Ajal, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, and we just think about bringing an end to the Zalimeen of the world, which is definitely one of the main agendas of the Imam. But alongside of that is to overcome these bad traits. May it not be that we have these traits of Banu Abbas and Banu Umayyah in our lives. For example, they say in the marriage of Harun al-Rashid to his wife Zubaydah, who was the mother of Amin. Amin was the stepbrother of Ma'mun, who was one of the first people that Ma'mun had killed, just to save his own throne. So when Harun marries Zubaydah, they had spent 55 million dirham in the wedding. And I don't know if this is correct, but I did the calculation myself into pounds. And it says that 55 million dirham at that time today is equivalent to 11 million pounds. 11 million pounds. And we're talking 14 centuries ago. Golden coins, the libas of his bride is filled with gold. So much extravagance. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Please recite one loud salawat. To this level of israf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He does not love those who bring about extravagance. And then these are the reasons as to why you can see that there is more and more hatred and stance against Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. If a person practices israf, he will naturally move away and stand in the way of his Imam, because he wants to live a comfortable life. He loves extravagance. He's become accustomed to this habit. They say that Harun, he would have 30 dishes cooked for every, you can say iftari or his dinner. 30 dishes are being cooked in the kitchen, and then when they would bring those 30 dishes, he would ask his wife, which one of those you like? Take the rest back. All of those would go to waste. So the second trait is corruption when it comes to finances. This is something which, see, when Abu Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam says, the Imam on the day of Ashura, he says, مُلِعَتْ بُطُونَهُمْ بِالْحَرَامِ, that their stomachs are filled with haram. Usually we think of haram to be maybe the person had eaten some swine or something haram as a meal. But these are those ingredients to true haram on your sufra. Financial corruption. The third trait which Banu Abbas would follow was, well, the bad policy that they had, that alongside all of this, the whole of society was filled with poverty. Many families, many communities were without naan, without bread. Many of those would sleep very hungry with their children. In the time of the 7th Imam ﷺ, the poverty had reached to such a level that people did not even have bread in their homes. And the riwayat says that Imam Kazim ﷺ, he would carry a huge carriage of loaf of bread on his back, and he would feed a lot of even the non-Shia communities of that time, because they were starving to death. So this is the situation of the government of Banu Abbas. The fourth issue with this government is that they are opposed and have hatred to the lineage of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. If someone, please recite aloud salawat. If someone was known to be an Alawi Sayyid, Alawi meaning someone who comes from the lineage of Imam Ali alayhi salam, or a Hassani Sadat specifically, neither were their signatures or their voices allowed to be heard in court cases. All of their rights, they did not have the same rights, equivalent rights to the rest of the society. Many of their properties and their finances were taken away, and many of those were imprisoned, specifically at the time of Mansur Diwanaghi la'natullah alayh. In fact, they say that Mansur had created a museum beneath, underground, beneath his palace. He had created a museum. What was this museum filled with? It was filled with skulls of Hassani Sadat. And then they said that they would write the names of them and the biography of each and every one of those skulls. And then later on, one of his hairs destroys that place because it was very horrific. So this is the sort of hatred that they had towards Alawi Sadat. The fifth trait that they had was the creation of false narrations. And instead of relying upon pure Islam, pure teachings of the Sunnah from the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, the Imam is physically present in front of you, they began to purposely, remember, it's not for the sake of simplicity, but rather purposely they had an agenda to introduce Sufi and Darawish sort of ideas and many new forms of superstition. So it was very easy for them to do this. Why? Because they are in power, and they began to create false ideologies and false narrations. However, it's the duty of the Anbiya and the Awliya to stand against this sort of propaganda. Even today, you can say for the Mu'mineen, it's a duty to clarify if propaganda is becoming a rise in society, and that does not necessarily have to be related to the deen of a person, but rather even the social affairs of society. Malcolm X, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate his soul, who brought about many changes, introduced people towards Islam. He says that if you are not careful, the media will have you believing the oppressed is the oppressor and the oppressor is the oppressed. We see this happening before our very eyes today. So therefore it's the duty of a Shia, a mu'min, a Muslim, a human being, to clarify for the world as to who is upon haqq and who is upon batil. And in fact, when it comes to this, when it comes to the creation of false ideologies, the 7th Imam والسلام, began to clarify for the people, and he began to silence the superstitious beliefs and the false ideologies. So this is very important for a Shia of Muhammad wa Muhammad. Please recite one loud salawat. Another one of those qualities of the Imam, and inshallah we'll come to the Messiah very shortly. Another one of those qualities was to remove, we said, poverty and pain from society. The Imam was directly involved with those who are empty-handed. And this is probably one of the reasons as to why they refer to him as Bab al-Hawaij. And truly, let's say if every single one of us as mu'mineen, as followers of this maktab, began to truly implement this generosity and fulfill the needs of those who are needy in society, in our communities, then that could inshallah make us one step closer to the zuhur of the 12th Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. They say that there was once a person who had his own farm. This may be the same riwayat or it is a different riwayat, in which this man, he used to grow watermelons and cucumbers. One day he sees that insects have eaten all of his crops, all of his livelihood, his stock. This is his business, it's ruined. So Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, he comes forward and he sees this farmer. He's sitting in the middle of his farm with his hands over his head, and he is very, very upset. The Imam goes forward, he asks from him that, why are you so upset? And he says, Ya Imam, do you not see the state of my farm? Just imagine, for example, a person loses £1,000 all of a sudden. It's not very easy to slide unless you have a strong faith. The Imam comes forward and the man responds. He says, Asbahtuka sarim. Ya Imam, my life is completely ruined. All of my income, do you not see? It's completely gone. The Imam asks from him, what was the cost and the profit you were going to make annually from all of this crop of yours? The man says, Ya Imam, I was going to make 120 dinar. The Imam straight away, he takes a packet, and these packets, or this envelope, no envelopes at that time, but packages you can say, the Imam would carry these known as surra. The Imam, or a jam of that is, a plural of that is surar. The Imam would carry these for those who are needy, or sometimes for those who face difficult situations. The man opens it up and he finds 150 dinar. So his annual income was going to be 120, but the Imam gives him 30 extra. So this is the generosity of the Imam. And although it's interesting to see that the Imam lives a very simple life himself, but he is ready to fulfill the needs of those who are in difficult situations. This is a quality which we need to adopt. Another short story, very interesting. There is a lover, a Shia of the Imam alayhi salam from the city of Qum in that time, by the name of Bakar. And Bakar, is someone who has traveled to Mecca 40 times in his life for Hajj. Now on the 40th journey of his to the land of Mecca, and this is someone who, he lives a very good life, he has his own shop in the middle of the bazaar of Qum, he has his own income, he has his money with him, he goes to Mecca and someone steals his money from him. He's a traveler, he does not know what to do now. But Bakar, every time he would go to Mecca, he would have an intention that I will visit Baytullah and I will also go to the land of Medina to visit an Imam Ma'asum. So he really starts to think to himself, should I go to visit the Imam now? I do not have money. But then he says, no, inshallah, let's go and I will visit the Imam. Very difficultly, without money, he reaches the land of Medina and he visits the grave of the Prophet, peace be upon him. On his way back, he thinks to himself again, should I meet the Imam? But if I meet the Imam and I ask him for money, then it's not going to be a sincere ziyarat. A person has this in his mind sometimes when he goes to ziyarat. But it's very nice for a person to also go to Karbala without a single hajat. For a person to say, Ya Aba Abdullah, I've come just to say salam to you. So this person, he says, because I was in this situation, I decided, no, I will not go to the Imam this time. Inshallah, I will meet him next time. Now, as he is standing in the middle of the bazaar in the land of Medina, he sees one of the agents, one of the representatives, the companions of the Imam alayhi salam. And he recognizes this well-known companion, but the companion does not know him. He is all the way from Qum, very far from Medina. So he stands there, and this companion, he calls out to the people in the bazaar. He announces, he says that I need a worker, I need a construction worker to help me demolish a building. Will anyone help me? I need them for 6 to 7 days. I will pay you your salary. This man Bakar, he steps forward. He says, I'm ready to help. I've traveled from far. I also need an income. So he goes with him, he begins to work, and on the 4th day, as Bakar is working for the companion of the Imam, remember he has not told him that why he has come. As he is working, he is tired, he is sweating. Suddenly he sees Imam Kazim A.S. is coming. The Imam, as soon as he sees him, he recognizes him, he sees the Imam. They have looked at each other eye to eye, and the Imam asks from him, Bakar, what are you doing here? You're working in the city of Medina. Did you not have your shop in Qum? What is this situation? Bakar, he explains. He says, yeah, Imam, the thing is, I was going to Mecca, I lost my money. I was going to come to see you, but I did not want to make my ziyarat insincere. The Imam says, whenever you get a chance, come to my residence. Later on, Bakar, he goes to the house of the Imam alayhi salam. The Imam gives him 15 dinar, which is equivalent to 150 dirham, not a small amount. He says, take this. He says, no, Ya Imam, I do not need this. Look, I'm working. I did not come here to take anything from you. Even today, Iranis, mashallah, they have a lot of takalluf. It's called ta'aruf. So he says, no, Ya Imam, I do not need this. The Imam says, no, you take this. This is from me to you. The Imam says, as you leave for Qum, I need you to do one favor for me. Take one of my letters for one of my representatives in the city of Kufa by the name of Ali ibn Hamza. So he goes to the land of Kufa. And just imagine yourself in this kind of a situation now. That you're far from your land. The Imam has tasked you with something else. You start to really think sometimes that Imam ne mujhe kaun se kaam mein laga diya. I need to get back to my homeland. I've been gone for so long. But anyway, he goes to the land of Kufa. He visits the representative of the Imam and he hands him this letter. The man greets him, he sits him down, he opens the letter. He sees that there is an extra 40 dinar. And he reads this letter, he looks to Bakar, he says, do you know that the Imam has given 40 dinar for you here? Bakr says, Ya Allah, there was no need for this. I already said to the Imam, look, I'm working here in Medina. He's already given me enough. The companion of the Imam, he looks to Bakr, he says, know that there is hikmat behind the action and the insistence of the Imam, despite whether you have a shop in Qum or not. So he takes the 40 dinar and he goes back to the city of Qum. And as he reaches the city of Qum, he meets his family members, he meets his friends. He's going to his shop in the bazaar of Qum, and his friends around him, they say, Bakr, do you know what's happened? He says, no, what's happened? They say, your shop has been looted. So he was looted in Mecca, and now he's looted in his hometown as well. He's full of surprises for him. He goes to his shop, all of his items have been looted. When he counts the salary, the amount, how much it was worth, his loss, it comes to exactly 40 dinar. Imam alayhi salam knew from before that he is going to be in need when he goes back to Qum. So this is Bab al-Hawaj. This is the Imam who fulfills the needs of his Shia. Whether they are sometimes empty-handed, it could be that a Shia can be in the other side of the world who does not have any business or any food. The Imam pays attention to that person, as well as those who are sometimes in a good standard but they have faced difficulties in their life. Please recite one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the Imam is not selective when it comes to the needs of his Shia, know this. But sometimes the Imam alayhi salam wants us to strive more in his pathway. And this is how a person needs to also treat the fuqara, those who are needy in the world today. Sometimes it could be that we look to those who are on the other side of the world, but there could be many members in our community who are also going through difficulties. Someone could be facing a financial debt. Someone could need money for his marriage, but he does not have enough. And the Quran also teaches us this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. That in their wealth there was a rightful share fulfilled for the fuqara, those who are beggars, as well as those who are mahrum. Mahrum meaning those who have sometimes faced a difficulty in their lives. They had a ni'mat, it's been taken away from them. Today in our communities, you have people who have been to Karbala over 20 times in their life, or the land of Makkah, and this is very good. But then you also have fellow mu'mineen, fellow Shia in the world who have not been to Karbala once. The Imam is teaching us over here to sometimes try to balance out your spirituality for fellow mu'mineen. Do not consider Karbala only for yourself. There is many mu'mineen in Nigeria, Pakistan, Afghanistan, in different parts of the world who have not been to ziyarat once. This is something which the Imam is pointing towards. The hadith says that if you send one person to the land of Mecca for once in his life, you will be resurrected amongst the Anbiya, amongst the prophets. Please recite one loud salawat. Inshallah, we'll come slowly to the Masaib. When it comes to how the Imam was imprisoned, a very common question which comes up. There is one narration which Alama Majlisi, rahmatullah alayh, Allah elevate his soul, narrates. He says that there was a very noble companion of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, and also of Imam al-Kazim alayhi salam, by the name of Hisham ibn Hakam, who was one of the top students of the 6th Imam alayhi salam. And whenever he would debate with, because that was a time of peak debates, after the establishing of the university of the Imam, this person, whenever he would debate with a non-Shia, he would silence them. And one day, some of the munafiqeen, they had plotted against this companion of the Imam in order to plot against the Imam's presence in society. So they call him over, this Hisham ibn Hakam, and they ask from him, do you believe that your Imam is a hujjat of Allah or not? He says, yes, of course I do. He gives the dalail from the Quran, from Hadith, and he is reasoning with them. Then that munafiq, he asks from Hisham. He says, so if your Imam is a hujjat of Allah, that means he has the same authority as the Prophet, peace be upon him. If he tells you to do something, it is wajib upon you, yes? He says, yes, of course. He's giving his dalil as to why it is wajib upon me. Now, the munafiqeen, they had planned from beforehand that behind the curtain, Harun al-Rashid will also be sitting there so that he can listen and become aware of the power of an Imam Ma'asum. So he's listening very carefully. The man very cunningly, he asks from the companion of the Imam that if your Imam tomorrow tells you to go to kill the Khalif of your time, will you go and do this? Hisham becomes very silent over here. He becomes silent. He responds, he says that I know that my Imam will not tell me to do this. Then the enemy, in his cunning style in this debate, he says, whatever you say, whatever I ask you, you just answer that the way I have asked you. If he is a hujjat of Allah, anything he says is wajib upon you, right? If he tells you tomorrow to do this against the Khalif of your time, will you do this? Again, he says, I know that my Imam will not tell me to do this. Again, he insists. He says, will you agree with him or not? He says, of course I will agree. He is the hujjat of Allah. As soon as he says this, the narration says that the complexion of Harun behind the curtain had changed. After the debate and the meeting, those people, they come to Harun, they say, know the power of this man who stands against your throne. And they say that from that moment, Harun, la'anatullah alayhi, he began to plan against Imam al-Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam until he had sent guards to imprison the Imam. The Imam is imprisoned in 3 different prisons in the land of Baghdad and goes through a very difficult situation. Now, just before we go on to the Masaib, for the sake of barakat, there is a hadith from the 7th Imam alayhi salatu wassalam, in which he teaches a dua to one of his companions. His companion by the name of Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman. He says, oh Yunus, recite this dua as much as you can, and inshallah it will benefit you. Inshallah it will benefit all of us as well. The Imam says, recite this as much as you can. Oh Yunus, recite, Allahumma la taj'alni min al-ma'arin. Oh Allah, do not make my religion a borrowed religion. Do not make it something which I have just taken as a transfer from my parents, and I do not take it as my own religion. No, you need to make this religion your own. Just say, for example, if I have an imanat from someone, and if that breaks, I will react differently. But if it is my own, then I will react differently. The deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also been given to you directly. It is not an amanat of your parents, but rather this is something which you need to treat as your own. You need to act accordingly. Then the Imam, so, oh Allah, safeguard me from a lazy faith, in other words. وَلَا تُخْرِجْنِي مِنَ التَّقْصِيرِ. Oh Allah, do not take me out of the position of blaming myself. If there is ever a situation where I see a sinful person, straight away I think about my own sins. I always see myself as blameworthy. The Imam says, constantly recite this. Whenever you constantly recite this, whenever the faults of someone else come in front of you, automatically you look at your own flaws. And this will result in, inshallah, a mindset by which I will put more effort into my deen. Please recite one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Inshallah, if we could get a few of the lights off so we can take our hearts and minds to the prisons of Baghdad and send our salams all together upon the Imam Mazlum of the bridge of Baghdad. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Ibrahim. Assalamu alayka ya Musa موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا أو باب الحوائج, remembering all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat around the world, for the safety of all of our ulama, for the repelling of the evil against the enemies of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, we seek tawassul with this Bab al-Hawaj on behalf of all of the Muslimin for the zuhur of the 12th Imam Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif, for us to inshallah remain loyal to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and the righteous ulama in the greatest of tests in Akhir al-Zaman. All together, take your hearts and minds, inshallah. May the Imam call us to Kazimiya soon. Ya wajihan inda Allah, ishfa' lana inda, for the safety of our shrines. Ya wajihan inda Allah, ya bab al-hawaj, ishfa' lana. The Imam was transferred to 3 prisons, one worse than the next, and the final one was very difficult for my beloved Imam, as he is in chains, he is in a state of sujood. He would call out, Khallisni min an-nar ya Rab, and then he would call out, Khallisni min al-Harun al-Rashid, la'natullah alayhi. My beloved Imam reaches a state where his body becomes so frail and weak that if he was in a state of sujood, a person watching from outside, they would think that there is just one cloth on the ground. Ya Imam al-Kazim. Many of the Imam's lovers and followers had requested from Harun to please free my Imam, let my Imam out of prison. He is the son of Fatima, he is the son of Hussain. Our Ahlul Bayt have seen many difficulties until a group of Shia, they come to Baghdad and they ask from these security forces, please release our Imam. They call out, your Imam al-Kazim shall be released tomorrow. And they become so happy. They begin to tell their fellow mu'mineen, have you heard of the good news? Finally we will see our beloved Imam. After so many years, Ya Imam al-Kazim, how much we missed you. The Shia of the Imam had gathered outside the prison of Baghdad. They had gathered outside like aitam, like orphans without a father. Oh, our father, oh, Ya Imam al-Kazim. Some had really prepared themselves. Just imagine yourselves in this kind of a situation. The Imam is about to arrive tomorrow. You fully prepared yourselves. This is the son of Zahra. Some had really prepared themselves to see the Imam. They said that as soon as the Imam comes, I will be the first to kiss the hands of the son of Zahra. He is the son of Rasulullah. Until they see 4 men are bringing out a small frail janazah of Imam al-Kazim alayhi salam. They bring it forward and they put it down on the ground. Although it is a frail and weak weak body, but they say that it is very heavy. Why is it so heavy? The Imam is locked up in chains, and they say that these chains and the metal of those chains had hurt the body and the feet of my beloved Imam to such an extent that they wrote in his Masaib, Zissaqil Mardus, meaning the metal of those chains had pressed so hard against the ankles of and the bones of Imam Kazim A.S. that when they try to remove them, it is stuck to the flesh of my beloved Imam. بحلقة العيون. And when they try to unlock those chains, they cannot do so. And then they read the wasiyat of my beloved Imam. My Imam says, "Oh my Shia, bury me with these chains." His daughter Hazrat Masuma Salamullah alayha was just 10 years old in the land of Medina when they took him to the land of Baghdad. I say, Ya Hazrat Masuma, it must have been very difficult for you. May my salams be upon you, O Bibi Ma'asuma. You saw how they gave condolences to your brother Imam Ar-Rida alayhi salam. When the news reaches from Baghdad, your whole family had gathered in Medina. They gave you condolences. They say, Ya Fatima Ma'asuma, my condolences be to you, Ya bint Rasulullah. Your father has become shaheed. It is very difficult for a small daughter not to see her father. It is very difficult for a father to depart from his daughter. But I say, Ya Fatimatul Ma'asuma, you went through many difficulties. After this you have a journey to the land of Qum. But Ya bint Rasulullah, I did not read in those narrations that not once did anyone disrespect your hijab. No, in fact, they gave you condolences in Medina. They did not throw stones at you in Qum. But let me take your hearts to a 3-year-old daughter on the plains of Karbala. She calls out, Abata. She grips onto the headless janazah of her father Hussain, and he calls out, Ilayya, Ilayya. Ya Imam Al-Kazim, it's true that your body became frail and weak. The chains were stuck to your skin and your bones, Ya Madloom. But my Imam on the sands of Karbala, in his final moments, those who had swords, they would strike their swords. Those who had spears, they would strike their spears. Those who had arrows, they would shoot their arrows. Those who had stones, they would throw their stones. But then Imam Rida alayhi salam says, O Rayyan, on the day of Ashura, our grandfather Hussein was in such a helpless state that the enemies of Allah, those who were empty-handed, they began to slap the blessed face of our grandfather Hussein. And when his sister Zainab reaches the Maqtal of Karbala, she calls out, Anta akhi, Anta akhi Hussein, Assalamu alayka, Ya Abu Abdullah, وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحابه. السلام على جميع شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Hadi hadi.